Did you know that starting in 2026, for the first time ever, you can manually move your TSP employer match from your traditional TSP into your Roth TSP while you're still working? And that's a brand new in-plan Roth conversion feature inside the TSP itself. And in this video, I'm going to focus more on how to move your agency and employer match to your Roth TSP while you're still working. And let me walk you through exactly how it works step by step, how much you can move, how many times you're allowed to move it, and what the tax bill actually looks like. So there are no surprises. But as with anything the government gives us, there are a little bit of gotchas we need to clear up before you start clicking buttons. And I'll make a separate video about how to convert your TSP to your Roth TSP after leaving the service. So be sure to subscribe if you haven't done it already. I also hope you guys had a great New Year's Eve celebration, because I definitely did in Vegas. First off, according to the latest TSP updates, you're eligible to make a Roth in-plan conversion on your employer match as long as that money is vested. Now, I know some of you guys have been in the service for 20 or 30 years, so you're thinking, I'm vested, I'm good, and you probably are. But for anyone who might have taken a break in service or came into the federal system or in the military a bit later in life, we need to be clear on what vested actually means here, because it's not the same for every dollar in your account. The term vested basically means you have ownership of the money and it's yours to keep if you walk away from the job today. And you're always 100% vested in your own contributions, the money you put in from your paychecks. And you're also immediately vested in the matching contributions, and that's the 4% match you get when you contribute your own 5%. But here's a catch with the agency automatic 1% contribution, which is what you get just for showing up and breathing air, and even if you don't contribute a dime. And that specific 1% bucket has a time requirement. And you don't need to guess at this. You can verify it right now. You can log into your TSP account and click on the contributions tab at the top of the page. And once that page pulls up, you will see a breakdown of your money, and you will need to expand the contribution details under your account. You might have a civilian account, a military account, or both. Just make sure you're looking at the active one. Now, when you expand those balances, look for the line that says auto 1%, like it says right here on the screenshot. Right next to it, you will likely see the term or text that says 3 years. Though some of you might see 2 years, especially if you're in the military, and that confirms your requirement. Just a quick note here that the screenshot I'm using does not belong to any account and is used for educational and training purposes only. So now that we've cleared that up, here's what really matters. Look all the way to the far right of that same line. Does it say 100%? If you see 100% under the vested column, you're green lit. You own that money and you can convert it to Roth. But if it says 0%, 50%, or 75%, just stop right there. You're not fully vested in that specific pile of money yet. If you try to convert unvested money, it can get a little messy, or the system might just block you. And that's why you're better off waiting until that hits 100% if 1% is all you do. But I hope you're really contributing at least 5% to your TSP, because that's free money you're going to be leaving on the table. And there's the second line where it says match is always vested. So I know people get confused between the agency automatic matching and then the match, okay? And that money is yours from day one, which means you can convert it at any time. So even if you just start working for the military or the federal government, you can convert the 4% employer match. What you cannot convert yet is the automatic 1% if you don't have it 100% vested. And this is why you want to contribute at least 5%. The TSP match will contribute the remaining 4% of your salary, and that auto 1% will always go in there even if you select 0%. That makes sense so far, right? Now, let me break down the vesting codes real quick, because they are not the same for everyone. And if you're in the senior executive service, which is basically the SES, or if you're a military service member, a member of Congress, or a congressional employee, you only need to wait 2 years for that 1% agency match to be fully vested. It would be wild if I have any congressional members watching this video. And all other first employees have what's called a vesting code of 3, which means you're waiting 3 full years. And if you happen to be a CSRS employee, this whole vesting thing does not even apply to you because you have no vesting requirement. The TSP vesting rules only apply to first employees and the military service members under the blended retirement system or BRS. If you're a military service member under the legacy retirement system without the employer match, this vesting requirement does not apply to you either. Now, I'm going to get into the nitty gritty here. So there is such a thing as the TSP service computation date, or TSP SCD for short. And it's basically your official start date that the TSP uses to figure out if you've worked long enough, and whether that's 2 years or 3 years, to be fully vested in that agency automatic 1% contribution we talked about earlier. So if you're brand new to federal service and this is your first government job, then your TSP SCD is easy. It's just the day you start working. But if you're a rehire, meaning you worked for the government before, left, and then came back, or if you have any prior federal service, your agency has to do a calculation. They take your most recent hire date and they back it up to include all of your prior credible civilian service. So they are creating an earlier start date that gives you credit for that previous time that you put in. And this credible service is based on either FERS or BERS retirement rules. But here's what might surprise you. It can even include time when you never made any retirement contributions at all, or service where you got a refund of your contributions later on. And the calculation also gives you credit for up to 6 months of non-pay status in any calendar year. So if you took unpaid leave for a few months, that time still counts. But there are some important exceptions to this that you need to pay attention to. If you took military leave and you are covered under the Uniformed Services Employment and Reemployment Rights Act, that entire period of military service counts towards your TSP SCD, even if it was longer than 6 months. And same deal if you were out on non-pay status because of an on-the-job injury and you were getting workers' compensation benefits. And that whole period will count too. Now, the one hard rule that you need to know is that your TSP SCD can never be earlier than January 1st, 1984. And I don't care if you've been working for the government since 1970, the TSP did not exist before 1984. So that's as far back as your computation date can go. It's just a fun fact that you guys should know. And if your calculation results in a date earlier than that, they just set it to January 1st, 1984, and that's your TSP SCD. Now, why does all this matter? Because accuracy is everything here. And when you separate from federal service, the TSP uses your TSP SCD along with your separation date and your vesting code to instantly determine if you're fully vested in that auto 1% and its earnings. If the dates are wrong, you could lose money you're entitled to. And it's not just about vesting. Your TSP SCD also plays a role in determining your maximum loan amount if you ever apply for a TSP loan. And the TSP runs tests on your vested account balance. And if your TSP SCD is incorrect, it could affect how much you're allowed to borrow. And which brings us to who's responsible for getting it right. Your agency is supposed to verify your TSP SCD when they receive your official personnel folder, and they are supposed to correct it if it's wrong, but mistakes happen, right? Government paperwork is never perfect. So if you're a rehire or you have transferred between agencies, it's worth checking to make sure your TSP SCD is accurate. You can see it in your TSP account information, and if something looks off, you need to contact your HR office and get it fixed before you separate. Once you leave federal service, it becomes a lot harder to correct these things. Now, let's talk about how to actually convert your TSP match to your Roth TSP, now that you understand how that auto 1% and the match works. There are two strategies. First, you can convert a big chunk of your existing balance that has been sitting there for years. Or second, you can just convert the new contributions as they hit your account throughout the year. But before you move a single penny, you have to remember that this is a taxable event. You're taking money the IRS has not taxed yet and moving it to a place where they can never tax it again. But before you do anything, you need to understand exactly where you stand. And let's say you're earning $80,000 a year. And if you get the full match, that's about $4,000 coming into your account from the agency this year, along with the match, right? And that is roughly $154 every 2 weeks, or $333 every month. You can log into TSP account activities to see exactly what those deposits look like. And if you want a complete walkthrough, I offer 60-minute consultations where we can look at your specific situation. Just head over to firesightchat.com/consultation to book a time. So with that in place, the next thing to think about is how to make the most of that match and put it to work for your retirement. Now, the first decision you'll need to make is about timing. You can wait until the very end of 2026 after your last paycheck settles and do one big conversion. Or you can log in and do a conversion every single pay period. And keep in mind that the TSP allows for up to 26 Roth in-plan conversions per calendar year. So since federal employees contribute to their TSP 26 or sometimes 27 times per year, and the military contributes 12 times per year, you can literally convert that match every time it hits your account if you are that disciplined. And I know some of you guys are aggressive and you want that money in a Roth immediately so it starts growing tax-free from day one. And that's a valid strategy. But here's the other side of the coin. One benefit of waiting until the end of the year is that if the market finishes with a negative return, you could actually save on taxes. Think about it this way. If that $4,000 employee match you received throughout the year shrinks down to $3,500 because the market took a hit, and you wait until December to convert, then you're only paying taxes on $3,500 instead of $4,000. You just saved yourself $500 in taxable income. Now, I'm not telling you to bet on the market declining every year because that would be a very pessimistic strategy, but it's something to keep an eye on if you want to play it smart. If you are someone who likes to time the market, that's your personal preference. Either way, the important thing is that making the Roth conversion means more tax-free growth for your future. And that's the whole point of doing this. Now, there are a couple more technical details you need to be aware of before you start converting. First, there's something called a leave behind amount. While the minimum conversion amount is $500, there's also a requirement that you must leave at least $500 in each contribution source after you make a Roth conversion. So if one of the sources in your traditional balance has $500 or less, the conversion amount will only be taken from the other sources in your account. Rollover contributions don't have a minimum leave behind amount. And if you're a spouse beneficiary participant, the leave behind rule does not apply to your account at all. But for most regular federal employees or military service members, just remember that you cannot drain your account completely. The TSP wants you to keep at least $500 in there. The other thing I need to mention is for military service members who have tax-exempt contributions. If you deploy to a combat zone and make contributions while you were there, these contributions are tax-exempt. When I went to Iraq, Afghanistan, and Kuwait, I was able to contribute to my TSP tax-exempt. And here's how that works when you convert. If your traditional balance includes a non-taxable amount, your conversion will include a non-taxable amount in the same proportion as the taxable and non-taxable amounts in your traditional balance. Now, let me give you an example to make this clear. If your traditional balance is $100,000 and $10,000 of that is non-taxable from combat zone contributions, then 10% of your traditional balance is also non-taxable. If you decide to convert $10,000 to your Roth TSP, $9,000 of that conversion will come from the taxable portion and $1,000 will come from the non-taxable portion. Simply put, the IRS does not allow you to cherry pick which money you want to convert. Now, let's talk about the taxes because this is where most people start to sweat. And let's say you converted $4,000 of your employer match to your Roth TSP. The biggest thing you need to figure out is what your marginal tax rate is going to be for 2026. And I'm talking about the tax rate you pay on your last dollar of income. And it's not the rate you pay on all your income, but the rate on the top portion. So if you're single and making $80,000 a year, your federal marginal rate is 22%. That means a $4,000 conversion adds $880 to your federal tax liability. And don't forget the state. If your state takes 5%, that's another $200. But here's the thing. The TSP does not withhold these taxes on your behalf. When you do a Roth in-plan conversion, there is zero tax withholding. That means you have to pay the taxes out of your own personal funds. You cannot use part of the money you're converting to pay the taxes. The IRS does not allow that. And that's actually a good thing because you want to maximize your tax-free growth. So you need to plan ahead and make sure you have the cash available to cover that tax bill when it comes due. And luckily, you've got three main options for handling this. The first option is to set aside cash in a separate savings account. You can open a high yield savings account that's paying around 3%, 3.5% interest and use it strictly for this purpose. So it does not get mixed in with your everyday spending. So if you owe a total of $1,080 in federal and state income taxes, you could simply set aside about $42 every 2 weeks starting in January. And that spreads the cost out over the year, which makes it a lot easier to manage psychologically and financially. By the time you file your taxes in 2027, the money is already there and you're not scrambling and you're not dipping into investments or emergency funds. And while that money is waiting, it's at least earning a little interest instead of just sitting idle in your checking account. It's all about staying organized, staying ahead of the tax bill, and removing stress from the equation. Now, the second option is to increase your tax withholding with your employer by filling out a Form W-4. And for example, you can instruct your HR department to withhold an extra $42 from your paycheck every time you get paid. If you're paid bi-weekly, that adds up to about $1,092 over the course of a year. This method spreads out the cost gradually. So when tax season rolls around, you've already covered the extra tax from your Roth conversion. Again, it saves you from the stress of having to come up with a lump sum all at once, and it keeps your cash flow steady throughout the year. But if spreading out the withholding does not feel like your style, there's another approach that gives you even more control over your payments. Option 3 is to make quarterly estimated tax payments directly to the IRS. You can do this at any point during 2026 by visiting the IRS website and submitting your payments online. You don't even need a CPA to do this. This approach is particularly useful for people who like to stay organized and in control. And for example, if you make the Roth conversion in January, then you want to make that quarterly tax payment by April 15th for the 2026 tax year. If you make the Roth conversion in May, then you want to make that tax payment by the next deadline on June 15th. That makes sense so far, right? And this keeps you current on your taxes and helps avoid any surprises or underpayment penalties when you file your return. Now that your tax strategy is in place, it's time to shift gears and talk about something a lot of people overlook, but that can have a big impact on your Roth conversion, and that's the 5-year rule. There are 2 of them, and people mix them up all the time. First, there is the 5-year rule for earnings. This determines if the growth in your Roth account is tax-free. To get the earnings tax-free, your Roth account must have been open for 5 years. You must be 59 and a half. And this clock starts on January 1st of the year you made your very first Roth contribution. Second, there is the 5-year rule for conversions. This is different. Each specific conversion has its own 5-year clock. If you're under 59 and a half and you convert money, you have to wait 5 years to withdraw that specific converted amount without paying a 10% early withdrawal penalty. And if you're already over 59 and a half, you don't have to worry about this penalty clock. But for the younger folks, keep in mind that converted money is locked up for 5 years unless you want to pay a penalty on it. And with that important restriction in mind, the next step is making sure a Roth conversion actually fits your personal tax situation. And I strongly encourage you to sit down with a local tax advisor or a CPA to determine if doing a Roth conversion even makes sense for you in 2026. Maybe it won't. Maybe it makes more sense for you in 2027. The thing is, everyone's situation is different. Your income, your tax bracket, your estate taxes, your marital status, and your retirement timeline all play into whether this strategy is right for you. A good tax advisor can run the numbers specific to your situation and help you figure out the optimal conversion amount and timing. So don't just wing this on your own if you're not confident about the tax implications. So the bottom line is that the TSP Roth in-plan conversion feature is a very powerful tool, but it's only powerful if you use it correctly. And knowing your vesting status, understand the tax hits you're going to take, plan for how you're going to pay for those taxes, and respect those 5-year rules so you don't get burned down the road. If you do this right, you're setting yourself up for a whole lot of tax-free money in retirement, and that's worth taking the time to understand. And this has been another piece of a video, and we got a lot out of it.